I was walking in a forest preserve about 5 blocks away from my house. It was about 5 in the afternoon, and it was fall. Almost all the colored leaves were on the ground, and most of the animals were hibernating or had flown south for the winter. It was chilly, so I wore my hoodie with the hood up. The sound of the wind whistling through the branches of the tall trees soothed my depression. About 30 minutes ago, I found out that my friend had died in a car accident. He used to walk in the same forest preserve for hours, just talking. As I walked, I heard the leaves and twigs crunch beneath my feet. I looked up at the sky, and all I saw was gray clouds. The gray clouds reminded me of how depressed I was. I put my head down and continued walking. I eventually walked up to a pond, the same pond that me and my friend would skip rocks on. I looked, and there was a school of bluegill fish about 5 feet away from me. I looked at their shiny scales. Then I looked down. I saw a perfectly flat rock about the size of my palm. I skipped it across the water. 1, 2, 3, 4 times it bounced against the light waves. I looked in the pond, and I saw a reflection of a man in a black suit on the other side of the pond. I didn't bother looking up at the person in the reflection. I just turned around and walked back into the forest preserve. As I was walking down the trail that led out of the forest preserve and into the field, it sounded like there was an extra set of footsteps behind me. I tried looking behind me, and my hood blocked me from seeing out of the corner of my eye. I started walking faster because I got scared, naturally. Now I was sure there was someone about 7 feet away from me, because I heard a footstep in between my footsteps. At this point, I started walking faster and taking longer steps. After about a minute, the steps still followed me, so naturally, I started running, so fast that my hood flew off my head. I finally got to the field and continued running until I got about 50 feet away from the forest. I looked behind me to see if the person was still following me. Nothing was there. I thought I was going crazy. Then, behind a tree of the forest, I saw a black sleeve move behind one of them. I turned around and walked home, constantly looking behind me every minute. After I got back home, I slipped off my hoodie and dropped it on the floor of my room. I went to my computer chair and turned on my Xbox. It was about 8, and I told my friend on Xbox about the incident. He told me not to worry about it, that it was just some guy that happened to be walking the same way as I was. Then my dog started barking. I pulled the curtain that was covering the window of my room door, which is the side door of my house. Nobody was there, although the porch lights were on, and I could have sworn I heard someone's footsteps on the front porch before my dog started to bark. I shrugged, made sure all the doors were locked, and continued playing Xbox. It was about 10, and I was lying in my bed watching a movie on Netflix using my Xbox. My grandmother was in the other room and was sound asleep. The only way I could make her up was to start shaking her arm and yelling her name. Then my video froze for a second, and then it brought me to a screen saying that I was disconnected from Xbox Live. I tried everything I could to get it reconnected, restarting the modem, restarting the Xbox, connecting and disconnecting from the wireless network, but none of it would work. I went to my computer to check and see if there was something wrong with the servers. It wouldn't take me to the Xbox Live website. Instead, it took me to a page saying there was something wrong with the internet. I tried restarting the modem about 5 times again, and it wouldn't work. I picked up my house phone and there was no dial tone. I looked on the back of the modem for the number of the internet provider and picked up my cell phone. I started dialing the number and I looked to the top right corner of my cell phone. There was no signal. Now this is where I started to get weird. My phone usually has all 5 bars in my room, and at least 4. I walked all around my room, but couldn't even get a spike. I turned off my cell phone and turned it back on. Nothing changed. I started to panic. It can't be without noise, or I start hearing and seeing things. I turned on all my lights and started to go down the hallway to grab a DVD. I just looked down the hallway and it started freaking me out. All the lights were off and I can't stand the dark. The feeling of not seeing anything just makes me think of what or who could possibly be in there with me. I turned around and went onto my computer. Luckily, I downloaded a few good movies before tonight. I started playing one, lied down in my bed with my dog lying next to me, and started to relax. About 20 minutes into the movie, my power went out. I immediately went for my cell phone to use as a flashlight. I turned it on and it wasn't doing anything. My phone had a full battery before I started watching the movie. My phone battery usually lasts about 10 hours before it dies. How is this even possible, I thought. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it on the ceiling to brighten up the whole room. Then, my dog started barking. He ran down the hall and he started to growl. Then, there was nothing. I heard footsteps going down the hall. Then, I heard my grandmother's room door open. I heard a quick yelp and then nothing. I finally remembered. I had forgotten to check the back door. Quickly, I ran to my door with the only flashlight. I struggled to unlock the door. I put the flashlight in my mouth and continued to try to unlock the door. It felt as though I couldn't breathe. My heart felt like it was about to break out of my chest. I finally got the door open and I ran as fast as I could outside. I ran about 3 blocks and went to someone's front door. I knocked and rang the doorbell. Nobody answered. I started yelling and crying, banging on the door as hard as I could. Still, no answer. I tried almost every house on that street and nobody would answer. Then I found a car just sitting there, running and nobody in it or near it. It was just in the middle of the road with skid marks behind it and the door open. I don't know how I didn't see it before or heard it stop at all. I jumped in, slammed the door, and sped off, not worrying about any consequences. I sped away and headed to the police station. On the way, there were more cars just like how I found this one, empty, running, and doors open. What the fuck is going on, I thought. Then, I felt myself hit something. I hit the brakes and looked in the rearview mirror. Lying on the ground was a very tall, bald man in a business suit. He started to get up and I drove away. I had no time to deal with this guy. I looked in the mirror and he was gone. I got to the police station and I heard gunfire inside it. I jumped out of the car and ran in to see what was going on. Nobody was inside. All that was there were guns and bullet shells. My legs went limp. I held to the wall and tried my best to hold myself up. Then everything started to fade. I was passing out. I fell to the ground as everything went black. I saw a black shoe step around the corner with a black pant leg. When I woke up, I saw the night sky, surrounded by trees. I moved my fingers over and I felt cold metal. It was my flashlight. I slowly got up and turned on the flashlight. I looked around and recognized the area right away. I was in the forest preserve. I wobbled around trying to regain my strength. My flashlight only shined on one tree at a time. Then, after about 5 minutes of walking around, one tree my light passed over didn't look right. I started to move my flashlight back over so slowly, shaking. Then I saw it, the black suit. I looked up and I saw his face, or rather, the lack of. No ears, no hair, nothing. He was about 9 feet tall, and his arms were past his knees. He walked towards me. I tried to move, whether it be a step backwards, running a mile, even just one step towards the beast. But I couldn't. Fear filled my body with every step he took toward me. Eventually, he was 5 inches away from me. He bent over and made his face right in front of mine, as though his eyes were looking into my soul. Then, the most horrifying thing happened. His jaw started to drop, his skin tearing from the top half of his head. More and more, it started to look as though he was making a mouth. A little bit of skin here and there was still connected. Then, black tentacles came out of his mouth, slithering out like snakes. They grabbed me and he stood up, looking up with the tentacles coming out of his mouth, holding me above him. He unhinged his jaw and he pulled me in, head first. I woke up in my bed. It was morning. My grandmother was handing me a plate of eggs. I looked outside and the neighborhood was lively. looked over at my nightstand, and on it was a flashlight, a leaf, and a perfectly flat rock about the size of my palm.